So the title of the webinar today is Fall and Winter Foot Care Wise, Tips for Your Toes. And we're going to learn all about tips for keeping your feet safe this winter. So knowing what the change of seasons means for foot care, identifying the types of colder weather gear you're going to want to have on hand, and understanding what foot care concerns you should look forward to during these colder seasons. Lindsey is our foot care program coordinator here at the IDHC, the Indigenous Diabetes Health Circle. Lindsey has been with IDHC since 2008 after graduating from Brock University, and has enjoyed many years of providing diabetes services to the Indigenous community. Lindsey was raised on the north shores of Georgian Bay in the small Indigenous village of Jabaunaning, colonially known as Killarney, Ontario. She belongs to the Wanapitei First Nation and currently lives and works out of Sudbury. Lindsey has Scottish and Anishinaabe ancestry and spent most of her earlier years learning and living off the land. Lindsey is very accomplished and has done a lot of work in collaboration with Diabetes Canada, Diabetes Action Canada, the Institute for Clinical and Evaluative Sciences, and many, many Indigenous communities and organizations. So we're happy to welcome Lindsey here with us today.
I thought that it would be a great opportunity to be able to just share some knowledge and information with you, and to be able to answer any questions that you may have as you start to get ready for your colder months that we have ahead of us for this season. So just a little bit about IDHC and foot care. We always want to make sure that we promote and work towards our vision and mission. A vision of the IDHC is to strengthen the Indigenous community capacity and to reduce the impact of diabetes. The mission of IDHC is achieving the vision by supporting Indigenous communities, families, and individuals by promoting those holistic wellness models, building on traditional teachings and best practices to develop and provide programs, education, resources, building relationships and community capacity. And in all this, IDHC recognizes and respects personal choices, autonomy, and diversity. And some of you may or may not know regarding the foot care program. It is a holistic model that supports a continuum of seamless foot care services, and it's based on a focus of knowledge sharing, screening, access to care options, resources, treatment support, and data collection. So just going through some learning goals for today. We hope that from this webinar, you know what the change of season means for foot care, that you understand what foot concerns look like during the colder season, and that you're able to identify the types of colder weather gear to have in your home or to access so that you have it and you are prepared for when you're going outside. So just a quick review on diabetes and its connection to our feet. I always want to make sure that we review that. It's a great refresher to understand the connection between, what we eat, our sugar levels, and our health of our feet. So type 2 diabetes, it is a disease in which the body cannot make enough insulin, which is the hormone that helps control the amount of glucose or sugar in the blood. It doesn't properly use the insulin that the pancreas organ makes. So it's one or the other. So it's a very different depending. So when the body's cells do not absorb the glucose that travels in our blood, it remains there. So it doesn't go into the cells, which means it remains in our blood. And what it does is as the blood travels, it is a highway in our bodies. And as it travels in that bloodstream, the sugar's causing that blood glucose to rise. So with those high blood sugar, as it's traveling to the smaller parts of our body, those are the extremities, such as our feet and our hands and our eyes, it causes damage to the blood vessels. It causes damage to the tissue, and it causes damage to the nerves that control our movement, our muscle contractions, our feeling, and the function of our bodies and those muscles within those areas of our hands and our feet. So damage to the nerves over time will cause what they call a loss of protective sensation, sometimes referred to as the acronym LOPS. It also causes neuropathy, which is a term for nerve damage. It also causes peripheral arterial disease, which is the arteries that are they are shrinking in a sense because there is that plaque buildup along the walls of the artery, and so it constricts the amount of blood that is flowing within our arteries. So you can just imagine our pancreas. It's a very vital organ when it comes to what we eat and being able to release that insulin, like that factory that's pumping out the insulin. Over time, it does wear down, especially if we stress it and strain it with a high level of sugary foods that we're constantly eating in our body. And when that pancreas does get stressed out and overworked, it will start to malfunction. And this is where you'll start to see problems where either it's not producing enough insulin or our bodies are not able to utilize insulin in the way that it's supposed to. You can also get certain things such as insulin resistance, where your cells are resisting the insulin. Sometimes what you call lipids, or a little bit of the winter flub, I like to call it, acts like a snowdrift. And when you're trying to open the door and there's a snowdrift there, it makes it very difficult, very challenging, and that door is resisting that opening. Same thing with our cells. It's resisting that opening in order for the insulin to communicate and to come into the cells and trigger that release for that door to open and the sugar to come in. So what does this mean for our nerves? Like I said, with our the high sugar levels, if it's left in the bloodstream because it doesn't enter the cells without that key being the insulin to unlock that door, it's left in that bloodstream and it's left to travel through the bloodstream. And what it does is it causes that loss of protective sensation. And so that's where the nerves become so damaged that they start to die off. They are deadened in a sense. Over a certain period of time, they become deadened. So this is an image that shows you on the left-hand side, the nice, very healthy nerve. And then on the other side, the right-hand side, that's where you're seeing more of that damage taking place to our literally connecting highways from our brain to all the different parts of our body. And like that stereo system, you may be playing music, but it's coming in fuzzy, or it's crackling, or it's not coming out of the speaker at all. And that's because somewhere along the line, the wiring has been damaged. That protective coating, that nylon sheet they call, has been damaged from those high sugar levels. It's like glass pumping through our blood, and it's causing that damage, cutting it and damaging it over a period of time. So this is just another image I wanted to show you to, really picture what's going on inside our body, and that basically an information highway of those signals and those nerve impulses that are allowing our bodies to function with our muscles contracting, as well as that sense of feeling. And you can see on the one side, we have a very healthy nerve where there's that direction of that nerve impulse. The myelin sheath is very healthy, it's full and intact, and the nerve is able to feel and it's able to receive those impulses and messages of telling it what to do, whether feeling a certain amount of heat, cold, pain, as well as being able to function with muscle contraction as well. So, and this is where on the other side, you have that unhealthy, where you see a lot of that damage of that, what I would like to call that stereo line, where it's not able to function properly. Messages are not fully getting through. And if they are getting through, it's partial communication, where you may feel a little bit, but you're not feeling in all different areas. So a little bit about that PAD, the peripheral arterial disease. It's that other component of our foot health. You know, we have that feeling, that pain indicator to let us know, those warning bells to let us know whether something's going awry. And we also have to consider our blood health. How healthy is our blood in order to carry the nutrients down and to be able to take away any of the toxins and bring it back up through our veins. So I had mentioned earlier, it's that constriction of blood flow where you see that yellowing buildup along the walls. Well, that's that plaque buildup. It's often referred to as that hardening of the arteries, and it's from thickening of that artery lining, and it's that buildup of plaque from cholesterol as well. And that cholesterol builds up on the sides, and it really constricts that blood flow and the amount of blood flow that can come in at a time. So it slows that blood flow down. It increases your blood pressure because, again, you're narrowing it down. And it reduces that circulation to your feet in order to carry oxygen and nutrients, as well as deliver the rest of the toxins that might be carried away up through the veins of your body. So again, there's that balance of that blood health and the feeling, both very important when we're looking at the health of our feet. So again, with that loss of feeling in the feet and the lack of blood flow, the foot becomes at higher risk for that unnoticed trauma and that decreased ability to heal this trauma. So those are a very bad mix when it comes with identifying a concern right away to deal with it and not letting it fester, as well as having that strength in the blood to be able to heal it. So when a small foot concern goes left unchecked, that's when it can become a bigger concern, leading to those infections, to those ulcers, to gangrene, and possible foot amputations. So foot ulcers are one of the most common and serious complications of diabetes, and often leading to risk of amputation. Canadian adults with diabetes are over 20 times more likely to undergo a lower limb amputation. And 85% begin with a foot ulcer, which means with ongoing preventative foot care and healthy lifestyle, amputations are 85% preventable. Now, it's good to keep in mind that the winter months are especially important for foot care. Why, you may ask? Well, it's that colder season and your feet. And what does the colder season mean for your feet? What does it bring? The colder season brings those cold temperatures. It brings that wet ground and that dampness. And it also brings that dry air. So again, that if you're living with diabetes, it increases your risk for that trauma and the damage to your feet from the environment. So with the reduced blood flow to the extremities, it leads to that loss of feeling, and it can turn minor foot issues such as blisters into serious wounds. And these conditions can give all sorts of concerns, and poor circulation can also lead to swelling and make little concerns such as dryness or cracking extremely worse. So you're thinking to yourself, okay, winter months, it's bringing me colder temperatures, it's bringing me dry air, it's bringing me that damp, wet ground. What does that mean regarding some foot concerns that I need to protect my feet about, and what concerns do I need to look for when I'm doing my self-checks? Well, some of the things that you need to consider and to prepare for is dry skin. Dry air is going to dry out your skin. Dry skin can lead to cracking and fissures. There's also foot fungus, blisters or skin breakage from friction, as well as frostbite, last but not least. So going into a little bit more of these in detail, they are smaller concerns. However, living with diabetes will make it increase in severity if not checked and addressed right away. So winter dryness, again, with that poor circulation associated with diabetes, it often decreases the moisturizing glands that are in your feet, and that leaves them more susceptible to the severe dryness. Dry and cracked heels from that lack of skin moisture, that can allow that bacteria to grow, and it spreads into a larger infection, which could also lead into a wound and then it goes on and on from there. So this is why it's very important to be taking a look at your blood health, to be taking a look at how healthy is your skin health. Are you getting that dryness because of, the damage to that moisturizing gland? So everyday activities in colder weather, that is what increases the risk, right? So such things as warming your feet by the fire may seem nice and sound nice, however, it's not nice for your feet. Adjusting the heat in your car because of how cold it is. Well, that's that hot air that's also very dry and could also present some issues to your feet. So keeping your feet moisturized prevents that dry skin, prevents that itching, those heel cracks that form, the fissures that are very painful and prone to infection. Wearing socks and shoes to protect your skin from that dry air, drinking plenty of water, even if you're introducing your teas these days, definitely, because that will add that hydration back into your system. Avoiding those hot showers, and not soaking your feet as well, because again, those things can lead to moisture depletion, where you want to add more moisture and strength to your skin, because as skin dries out, it weakens. And with pressure, that's where those cracks will start to form, because the integrity of the skin is just not as strong as it could be if it's well moisturized. So some things to be looking for is to be mindful of those red shiny areas of the feet. There could be warning signs that skin is on the brink of breaking down. If you do have cracked skin or heel fissures, a topical antibiotic such as a polysporin will be needed. Cream will not be helping you at this point because there's that breakage of the skin now, and you need to prevent any bacteria from getting in there. Winter fungus. Again, fungus is always a concern, but it is, you're at a higher risk for fungus during the winter. And it's that, again, it's that dry air, but damp temperatures and dampness around that really plays a role in winter fungus. So again, fungus is an infection and it can affect the nails or it can affect the skin as well. And sometimes the skin fungal infection can lead to a nail fungal infection as well. So this is some things that you want to be very clear on what it looks like, so that if you start to see certain signs, you get it addressed right away, as well as practicing that preventative care so that you're preventing that from happening as well. So like I said, the rain, the snow, the slushy weather causes that dampness, and that moisture that collects between your socks, your feet, and your toes can form that bacteria, which can lead to that infection. And we do have microorganisms that live on our skin all the time. They live in some healthy colonies, and we keep them healthy and in check and in balance, so they don't have a bit of like a fungal outbreak, because we keep it clean, we keep it nice and dry, we keep it well moisturized. Those are some key things in order to keep that fungus in check, those fungal organisms in check, and prevent a fungal bacterial infection from forming. So some things to look for regarding your nail: the yellowing, abnormal whitening of the nail, chalky appearance as well could be signs of nail fungus infection. We do have some images here for you to take a look at that could help you sort of get a picture of what it may look like. So again, you can also look at the reddening of your skin as well, the peeling of your skin too. That damp reddish flaking peeling, that's also a sign of that skin fungus that could be present as well. So taking a look at these images and keeping that in mind when you're doing your self-inspections. Some things that you can do to prevent that fungus is with your hygiene, that daily washing I was talking about, drying between your toes, and again, not applying that cream in between your toes, because again, that encourages that fungal infection. And if you wanted to go a step further, tea tree oil is a natural antifungal. So diluting it with a little bit of water and applying that to your nails, that could be a preventative measure for you. Changing out of your damp socks toweling dry your feet and toes immediately, and then changing yourself into some clean socks, dry socks, as well as dry footwear. And then also avoiding sharing of shoes, because fungus actually lives in your footwear for up to 6 months. And you can actually get it or give it if you're sharing your footwear. If you do have fungus or end up getting fungus, certain things such as topical creams or types of ointments can be placed on it. There's also oral medication as well. But again, you're going to want to be consulting with your physician and or foot care specialist. So blisters and breakage of the skin. These are some pretty bad looking blisters. I know some of you may get small little ones, but they can range from small to very large as well. And if left unaddressed, it will continue to break through the skin and it will cause that breakage, and it'll just keep continuing on through your skin as well. So that's another reason why we want to be continually just checking in on our feet to make sure that there's no concerns going on at all, especially if you know that you have that loss of feeling, so that you know that there won't be those alarm bells going off, that pain indicator to let you know that there's something going on down there. So skin blisters, those are just sacs of fluid that is trying to cool and protect that skin that has been damaged because of that trauma and friction. And a lot of times that comes from improper footwear. So that's where it's not necessarily secured and fitted to your feet, and that's what causes that rubbing as we walk. Maybe our heel is lifting off of from the actual sole of the shoe, so that's causing rubbing and friction, which leads to that blister. So that trauma ends up going into that blister. There's that sacs of fluid. If the trauma continues and it's not checked, and then therefore protected from that friction, it will just continue on and it will break the skin and it will continue to damage that skin. So again, some good things to be doing is making sure that you're checking. If you're going for longer walks, check your feet. Make sure that you're checking them out, and especially if you're breaking in new shoes, don't go for longer walks, go for shorter walks and come back and check your feet and make sure that you're still okay. There's no breakage of the skin. Walk with bandages, making sure that you have those bandages to protect those areas that are experiencing that damage and that friction so that you can prevent any further damage from happening. Frostbite. This is very serious. It can actually lead to amputations very quickly. So it's something that we want to be very informed about and try to prevent as best as possible. So again, when your skin and your body and your feet are exposed to the cold, what happens is those blood vessels that are close to the skin, they begin to narrow because, again, it's a survival instinct because your body wants to preserve as much of that core vital organ as possible. So literally all the blood is going to your core to try to keep your vital organs safe and warm while it's going through these cold temperatures. So you literally start to lose that blood in your hands and your feet and your extremities. Survival instinct, our body is an amazing thing. So one of those things is if you're living with diabetes and you're not at an increased risk for frostbite. However, that loss of protective sensation puts you in sort of like a blinder state when it comes to temperature, because again, you don't necessarily know if the cold temperatures are affecting your skin in certain areas and they're exposed to those colder temperatures and not maintaining that warmth, not being properly protected in a warm mitten or just with prolonged period of time. That exposure to that temperature, that minus temperature, is causing that frostbite damage, and you're unawares because of that loss of protective sensation and that that peripheral neuropathy. So that's what puts you at a greater risk for that frostbite, is that those are the alarm bells aren't ringing off for you as it would if you had that complete protective sensation. So that's where you may experience frostbite and you're not even awares of it. So you have a really nice image here of the stages of frostbite, and you can see how it starts to penetrate through the skin, and it starts just to go deeper and deeper and deeper until it actually ends up being a 3rd degree, like a burn, you know, that freeze burn type of thing. It does the same sort of type of damage to our skin. It's just that extreme cold is doing that damage. So again, making sure that you're protecting it by keeping your hands and feet very warm and getting out of the cold, removing your wet clothes, and making sure that you're warming up. And we'll go through some tips of how to warm up because there is some things that you should be avoiding when you're doing that. So just looking at that, again, preventing it. So what do we want to do? We want to be keeping our skin dry. We want to be keeping our skin warm. We want to limit the amount of time that we're out in that cold, especially if it's getting to the mid winter where it's really, really cold temperatures. We want to make sure that we're changing those wet socks and boots immediately. You want to be warming your feet slowly with layers of warm blankets, using your own body heat, you know, to warm your hands and feet. You know, if your hands are cold, possibly putting them under your armpits. Those are the warmer areas, or we tend to go between our legs. That's the warmer areas. You're using your own body heat to gradually warm your extremities back up again. Things to avoid. Never use an electric heat source. Never use a hot water bottle, or even rubbing may increase tissue damage. So you don't necessarily want to do that too much if it's frostbite as well. Like if you've just got cold hands, you know, that's one way to stimulate that heat. But, you know, if you're dealing with frostbite, that's a different scenario. There's more damage. So you want to be gently, gradually warming up those tissues with those warm blankets. And if you think that you may have even a degree of frostbite, you want to be calling telehealth. You want to be following up with medical attention right away so that you can deal with it, because it is very serious and it can lead to amputations if you know, if it gets to be a more severe case. I had a story to share with you. I like to share stories. There was a gentleman who he was late for his foot care appointment, and this was in London, so it wasn't really north, but it was still cold. And so he just put on just like a pair of dress shoes to go out in the middle of the winter. And he walked for about 30 minutes. And by the time that he had gotten to the chiropodist office, when the chiropodist took off his footwear, he had the most severe frostbite, and he ended up having to have an amputation, like right there. It had done that much damage to the skin and to the tissue that there was no reversing that damage. And in order to prevent further infection or damage, he had to have an amputation. So he had to be set up with an amputation due to just, you know, footwear and being out too long in those cold temperatures. So again, it's a very serious thing that we want to avoid and protect ourselves from. So how do we do that? Well, there's some weather gear that I would like to share with you. And again, you probably have a lot of these things in your household, but we want to make sure that we're checking them over, making sure that we have them, putting them in a basket right by our door, reminding ourselves that, yes, this is what we need to do to gear up. I like to always check the temperature and the weather before going outside, just to know what I'm getting myself into. And then reminding myself with those items right there at the door to remind myself to get them on. And pulling them out will help you to see what you have, what you need to get, and maybe what needs to be replaced. So what are some key things that you want to gear up for your feet? We have some little images here of certain things. Again, this is probably for more the adventurous kind with the skis and everything else. May not need those sitting at your door, but definitely thermal socks, you know, those warmer wool socks that are going to wick away the moisture, because our feet do still sweat if we're out there doing activities in the cold temperatures. So again, there's that balance between wicking away that moisture from the sweat of our feet, allowing that airflow to keep going through, but maintaining that warmth for that skin, right? So finding a good pair of thermal socks and then doubling up to make sure that if they do get wet, you got a nice dry pair to switch into. proper fitting footwear, making sure that it's fitted for your feet so you're not going to cause yourself any damage when you're walking around, making sure that it's nice and warm as well. Ice grips, they're really great to have, especially during those ice storms. Removable insoles and having extra is also good. Walking poles for stability. You can even use a walking stick if you have one. Warming packs that they're like little beads that you can find that you can just sort of put them in your mitts and it helps to warm. But if you're feeling that coldness within your feet and hands, that's that time to turn around to go back home. But in the meantime, that's when you can get those little, I guess they call them hot pockets, where you can warm them up, warm your hands up. But it's a sign that you need to seek that warm shelter. And then the slippers and moccasins, because our gear doesn't go just outside. Our gear is inside as well. We want to make sure that we're protecting our feet inside. Sweaters, well, your feet also need some extra warmth too. So getting those woolly socks on, maybe with the grippies underneath, or putting your moccasins on with some thicker socks as well in there. So finding your footwear. I always, when I'm in the community, I love to ask questions. I love to engage. I love to share stories. And when I was thinking about this, I put this up and I was going to ask the question, which footwear is yours? But I realized that it's a webinar. I'm not in the community. I'm not exchanging the information with you. So, but in due time, we'll be able to see each other face to face again. So again, which footwear is best for the fall? And which footwear is best for the winter? Now, feel free to put in some of your comments if you think that you know which one is good for fall and which one is good for winter. But I'll give you a hint. It depends, of course. It depends on the type of geographical region that you're in, because Toronto is not the same as Moosonee. Toronto uses salt. Moosonee uses sand, and different temperatures will also affect your footwear as well as your activity. You want to know what you're getting yourself into before you're putting your boots or hiking boots on. Talking about boots, what are we going to do when we're pulling them out? We want to be inspecting them. Are they still going to protect us from that frostbite, right? So making sure that you're choosing the right shoe and footwear for the season, for the activity. Not all feet are the same, right? So we want to be choosing footwear that's great for our feet for length and width. We want to make sure that we're preventing that trauma. You want to make sure that it's still stable for you and that it hasn't worn on the sides and it's going to be maybe wobbly if you put it on that table. Again, looking at the material, looking at the tread. Is it still got tread, right? We take a look at our tires, making sure that we have good tread for our winter roads. Same thing with our footwear. Does it have good tread? Is it nice and deep still, or is it worn down? You see the wear bar maybe. So again, looking at the tread, making sure that it can still fasten properly. Your laces are still good. If they are wearing, you can replace the laces. So choosing the right footwear for the season activity, it's key because right now outside the weather is changing. You want to make sure that you're taking a look and you're making sure that you're seeing if it's raining, freezing rain, is it snowing, what's going on out there, just so that you can better prepare and get the right footwear. So again, you want to make sure that for the fall, you need insulation, you need the moisture barrier, but in the winter, you need greater insulation, you need that warmth, and you need complete moisture barrier. You do not want any of that wet slush or snow getting in there and causing that dampness, right? You also want that wide base. You know, sometimes our streets and our pathways, they're not cleared to the best. You want to make sure that you got that wide base to be able to walk out there and be stable when you're walking through those wintry paths. Checking your footwear for signs of aging and knowing when to replace it is a key thing when you're inspecting your footwear, right? You're looking for any of that breakdown of material. You're looking for any holes in any of the material. Looking again at that tread and making sure that everything is still intact and it's still balanced. If you are needing to replace your footwear, go in the later afternoon. Our feet naturally swell throughout the day, so we want to make sure that we're going to accommodate them. And of course, wear them over a period of time, for little bits of time, right? So maybe for an hour one day, an hour and a half the next, 2 hours the next, gradually breaking it in and inspecting in between. So looking at your boots, making sure they have insoles, making sure they're going to fit your feet, right? The proper fitting, your length, your width, making sure it's got that good heel support, ensuring that the foot is secure in the boot. A rounded, deep toe box will allow the toes to wiggle and will prevent the cramping. Again, having those removable soles. And if you have orthotics, taking a look at that feature as well. Winter worthy boots. You want nice thick rubber soles with that wide base for stability, the deep traction, waterproof, making sure you know what kind of boots you're working with for those -degree temperatures. And making sure that you're going to be having that sufficient warmth, because again, with that neuropathy, you're not able to feel if your feet are getting cold. So you want to make sure that you're getting the best for your feet. Again, some preventative self-care resources to do your self-inspection with. These are all the items that come in your kit as an IDHC foot care kit. So some of the things that you want to be taking out of your kit to do your self-inspections. The majority of these items, they're either good for using as a practical use or to gain a little bit more insight and wisdom in order to do your self-care. Daily foot inspections. So again, taking out those contents of that kit, washing your feet, washing in between the toes, drying in between the toes, using that mirror to check the bottoms of your feet. That's where it gets the most wear. Using that mirror to even check in between the toes to see if there's anything going on there. So you want to have the good lighting, comfortable space for inspections. You want to also be using the 3 of the 5 senses, the touch, the smell, the looking as well, right? And making sure that your feet are clean and clear so that you know exactly what you're looking at and it may not just be any dirt or debris. And again, if you are living with that loss of sensation, you do want to be checking more than once a day, twice a day, or even in between your activities. Looking at your feet, some more tips for inspecting your feet, right? If you do notice any concerns, you want to bring that to a professional's attention right away. Keeping an eye for any redness, callus buildup, open sores, any of those other concerns we talked about, the blisters, the fungus, signs of those going on. Again, every day you need to be washing your feet and making sure that you're keeping them clean. And then moisturizing right after you dry your skin. That's the best time to moisturize, is that 3-minute rule, because that's when your skin really absorbs all that moisture that you're putting on. You're taking the time to do it. You want to make sure you're getting the most benefit out of it, right? And checking those toenails, making sure that they're smooth still, there's no chips in them. And if so, you want to be filing them down. You want to be making sure that they are well managed and maintained. If you aren't living with that loss of protective sensation or diabetes, and you can cut them straight across, right? You want to make sure that you're trimming them properly so that you're not going to lead yourself to any ingrowns. So just a recap on some of that prevention. Again, you want to make sure you're keeping your sugar levels in control, that you have that healthy range of sugar levels. You're not causing yourself more damage to your blood or to your sensation. You want to be loving your feet every day, taking the time to do your self-care, making time to do those self-inspections and those hygiene practices. Doing your physical activity. We can still get outside. We just got to gear up appropriately so that we can protect ourselves and keep the body moving. If you can't go out, stay in and do exercise. Those are things that you can do as well. And making sure that you're seeing a professional for any of those foot concerns. If you have a provider already, making sure you're keeping up with those appointments. And then also addressing any concerns that you find. A lot of times right now, we're doing more virtual care. So you could pick up the phone, call telehealth, call any of your providers, and just bounce some ideas off of them or let them know any concerns that you might have found, especially if it hasn't cleared in 24 to 48 hours. So again, a little bit more of that self-care. Warm socks, the winter boots, right? Checking inside, making sure that any of that debris is out and that they're still dry. Anything that we can do to keep our winter boots dry? We can put them on a dry rack. I know there's a couple of different kinds out there. One that just go right on your heating vent. Those are a great way to dry out your boots so that they're nice and dry when you go to put them on again. Moving helps with that blood flow, right? So you see a picture here of some poles that people are using, right? Those are the Nordic poles. Sticks will do just fine as well if they're nice and sturdy and strong. You know, you want to get out and you want to use your walking sticks, that's fine too. It helps with your stability, and it actually helps with that abdominal to engage it. So those are some key things to keep in mind when you're out walking around as well. You know, and also bringing any of those concerns, like I said, 24 to 48 hours, that's your time frame. You want to make sure that you're, you know, checking up with someone if those concerns aren't cleared within those hours. Who are your supports? Your family, your friends, any personal support workers that you can call, or if they are visiting your house, to bring it to their attention. Your healthcare team, any of those clinicians or practitioners, you can bring it to their health. You can give them a call just to see how things are going. Bring those questions to them, and they can share that with you. Most important, you want to talk about it to see if there's anything that you can do to help clear it, or if there's something that you need to do further, or something that needs to be done in order to help you keep your feet for a lifetime and to help keep them safe throughout these colder months of our winter. So again, looking at our feet and making sure that we're protecting them. I love this image. It's a great image of being out there in the winter. My grandpa used to always say, you know, there's no such thing as poor weather. It's just poorly dressed. And I wanted to share that with you today because we can still get out and we can still enjoy our colder temperatures, but it's to get that gear so that we're out there and we're enjoying it and we're staying warm and dry while we're doing it as well. So I want to leave you with this quote today. We have all the tools we need to have that good life and to stay in balance with harmony. It's up to us to look after ourselves in a good way. It's our responsibility now to take back that good life and to make it our own. So again, IDHC is here for you. I think we probably have some questions. I'd love to connect and answer them. And again, if you're living with diabetes and you have current foot concerns and you are not seeing a provider, get in touch with the Foot Care program. We can support you. And this is just some references as to where we got some of the information today.
Thank you, Lindsay. We do have a question that came in. Who do I contact to have foot care covered at my chiropodist? And where or how do I get the foot care kit?
Okay. Well, you can actually get a foot care kit by connecting with myself, and you can actually email myself, and then I will direct you over to Georgia Baum, who is our client service worker. She supports a lot of our clients, so we can work with you individually for a foot care kit. We've got staff in place to help you with that, and so once you reach out, I'll be able to get you going in the right direction. So again, that's fcc@idhc.life. And that FCC is for Foot Care Coordinator at idhc.life.
I have another question. I am a senior who was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes 2 years ago. I have badly ingrown toenails on all toes. I do not have the money to go to a chiropodist. Services are not covered by OHIP. Can you reflect on that?
Well, again, this is something where, you know, our foot care program can work with you. We can try to see where you are within Ontario, how we can support you, and where we can get you some foot care coverage, because with ingrown toenails, they are very painful and they can lead to some pretty bad concerns later on. So depending on whether it can be managed with, say, that advanced treatment of a chiropodist, and or if you are open to taking a look at what they call nail surgery, which removes either part or the whole nail for you. Again, that wouldn't necessarily be for all of your nails. They would have to be determined once you see a foot care specialist. There is anything, you know, that I touched upon, because there was a lot that I went through today. And if there is any one area that you would like to dive deeper into, please let us know, and then we can actually create a midwinter webinar that goes a little bit more deeper into one or more of those areas.